Why do 300,000 Venezuelan immigrants in the U.S. suddenly face deportation? For years, these families have built lives here, working, studying, and raising children who know no other home. They've woven themselves into the fabric of American society, contributing to their neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces. But now, a single Supreme Court decision has put their futures in jeopardy, sending shockwaves through communities across the country. The sense of uncertainty is palpable, as families who once felt secure now face the very real threat of being uprooted from everything they know. The Supreme Court sided with Trump, and now everything changes. This ruling marks a dramatic shift in U.S. immigration policy, one that could have life-altering consequences for hundreds of thousands of people who have called America home for years. The decision is more than just a legal ruling. It's a signal that the protections many have relied on can be swept away with the stroke of a pen. For many, it feels like the ground has shifted beneath their feet, and the future is suddenly filled with questions and fear. Here's what you need to know. The decision is not just a legal technicality, it's a turning point that could reshape the lives of entire communities, and it's important to understand how we got here and what might happen next. The story of TPS, or Temporary Protected Status, is one of hope, resilience, and the ongoing struggle for a place to call home. To truly grasp the impact of this ruling, we need to look at the history, the people involved, and the broader context of immigration in America. This week, the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to end Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, for Venezuelans living in the United States. TPS was originally granted to Venezuelans fleeing political turmoil, violence, and economic collapse in their home country. For many, it was a lifeline, a chance to escape danger and start over in a place of safety. The program offered hope to those who had lost everything, giving them the opportunity to rebuild their lives, find work, and provide for their families. Over the years, TPS has become more than just a legal status. It's been a source of stability and belonging for thousands of Venezuelans. TPS is a program that shields people from deportation if their home countries are facing war or crisis. It's meant to be a humanitarian measure, offering temporary refuge to those who would face extraordinary hardship if forced to return. Over the years, TPS has protected people from countries devastated by natural disasters, armed conflict, and government oppression. For Venezuelans, the program was a beacon of hope during one of the darkest periods in their nation's history. It allowed them to escape violence, hunger, and political persecution, and to find safety in the United States. Many have since built new lives, started families, and become active members of their communities. Now, over 300,000 Venezuelans, many with jobs, homes, and American-born children, could be forced to leave. These are people who have become part of the fabric of American society. They pay taxes, contribute to local economies, and in many cases, have children who are U.S. citizens. The threat of deportation means families could be split apart, businesses could close, and communities could lose valued members. The ripple effects would be felt far beyond the Venezuelan community, touching schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods across the country. For many, the fear is not just about being sent back to Venezuela, but about losing everything they've worked so hard to build. The Supreme Court's order reverses a lower court ruling that had blocked the move. For months, legal battles have raged in the courts, with advocates arguing that ending TPS would cause unnecessary suffering. But with this decision, the highest court in the land has cleared the way for the Trump administration's plan to proceed. The legal fight has been long and complex, with passionate arguments on both sides. Supporters of TPS say it's a moral imperative to protect those who have fled danger, while opponents argue that the program was never meant to be permanent. The Supreme Court's ruling is a stark reminder of how much power the judiciary holds over the lives of ordinary people. Two Supreme Court justices strongly disagreed, calling it a dangerous and rushed decision. In their dissent, they warned that the ruling could set a precedent for stripping protections from other vulnerable groups in the future, and criticized the majority for failing to consider the real-world impact on families and communities. The dissenting justices argued that the law should be interpreted with compassion and an understanding of the human cost. Their words have resonated with many advocates, who fear that this decision could open the door to further rollbacks of humanitarian protections in the years to come. But the Trump administration insists TPS was never meant to be permanent, claiming it strains local resources and undermines immigration laws. Officials argue that the situation in Venezuela has improved enough for people to return, and that extending TPS indefinitely would encourage more unauthorized migration. The administration's position is that the U.S. must enforce its immigration laws consistently and that humanitarian programs should not become a backdoor to permanent residency. Critics, however, point out that conditions in Venezuela remain dire, and that returning now could put lives at risk. The debate over TPS is part of a larger national conversation about who deserves protection and what kind of country America wants to be. The decision has sparked outrage and fear among immigrant communities and their supporters. Across the country, protests have erupted, with advocates warning of a looming humanitarian crisis. They say that forcing people to return to Venezuela, a country still grappling with political instability, food shortages, and violence, could put lives at risk and tear families apart. The images of families weeping at airports, children clinging to parents, and communities rallying in support have become symbols of the struggle for justice and compassion. For many, the fight is not just about legal status, but about the fundamental values of fairness and humanity. Community groups and legal teams are scrambling to find solutions, but time is running out. Deportations could begin as soon as April. Legal aid organizations are overwhelmed with calls for help, and families are desperately seeking advice on what to do next. Many are exploring every possible legal avenue, from appeals to requests for asylum, but the clock is ticking. The sense of urgency is growing as families weigh their options and try to prepare for an uncertain future. Some are considering relocating within the U.S., while others are looking for ways to stay connected to their communities, even if they are forced to leave. The emotional toll is immense, with anxiety, fear, and sadness hanging over every conversation. What happens next? The future is uncertain, and the stakes couldn't be higher for those affected. Every day brings new developments, new legal challenges, and new hopes for a solution. The fate of 300,000 Venezuelans, and the communities they are part of, now hangs in the balance. For many, the coming weeks will be a time of waiting, hoping, and fighting for the right to stay in the only home they've known. There may still be appeals, or Congress could step in. Lawmakers from both parties are under pressure to find a legislative solution that would protect Venezuelan families from immediate deportation. Some are calling for new laws to grant permanent residency or extend TPS, but political divisions make the path forward uncertain. The debate in Congress is heated, with passionate arguments on both sides. Some lawmakers see this as a chance to fix a broken system and offer a path to citizenship for those who have contributed so much to American society. Others worry about setting a precedent that could encourage more migration. The outcome will depend on political will, public pressure, and the ability of leaders to find common ground. But for now, thousands of Venezuelans are left in limbo, waiting to see what the future holds. Every day brings new uncertainty, as families hope for a last-minute reprieve or a change in policy. For many, the fear of being forced to leave the only home they've known is overwhelming. As the deadline approaches, the nation watches, and the fate of these families hangs in the balance. The story of TPS is a reminder of the power of law, the fragility of security, and the enduring hope that even in the face of adversity, compassion and justice can prevail.